Hello and welcome to the BGCP December podcast, the official podcast for the Big Glasgow Comic Page, where we talk about the latest comics, movies, television, and other pieces of nerd culture. I am your host for this episode, Massimo, and on today's interview episode, we are joined by a journalist and author whose credits include an action movie reference guide, the action movie A to Z, and The Vintage Geek, the quiz book, over 1,000 intriguing questions and fascinating answers for nerds of all ages. And also he reviews movies every Saturday morning for the BBC Radio Oxford. We'd like to welcome to the show, Marshall Julius. Hello, how you doing, man?
Hello. Thank you for your welcome. I feel very welcomed.
That's fine. I did say your name right, didn't I? Is it Julius? Jules? How do I... Julius, that's it.
As in Caesar.
Julius Caesar, but less of the stabbing. So could you tell the so far? Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a journalist and author. As you can see, I just lost my milk tooth about 2 weeks ago. I was worried that it was the source of all my immature powers, but as it turns out, I remain every bit as childish and stupid as I was before. But now I have to decide what I'm going to do with it. But as it turns out, it quite amuses me, and I'm not in a hurry to replace it. But now that I look at it now, it's like, oh my God, I just look like a mad old gappy loon. Anyway, I digress. I'm a film critic. I'm an author. I go on the radio, so I suppose that officially makes me a broadcaster. I even during the lockdown, I started designing my own sort of rainbow crosshatch robots that now I sell on Etsy, on Vintage Geek Art.
There you go. Oh, nice.
Prime. And I do T-shirts for Hot Merch. I'm writing another book at the moment about makeup effects. I do loads of social media. I'm obsessed with Twitter especially, and you'll find me there on Marshall Julius, and probably like a dozen other things, because back in the day you could like have one job and that was enough to that paid everything you needed.
Yep.
You'd have holidays. It was all very nice and very civilized. And nowadays you have to have like 50 60 different jobs. You have to have a bit of everything, otherwise you just be out on the street. And actually most journalists I know, even though they do 50 or 60 things, are still broke ass.
I mean, that's an interesting feature for myself because I'm a journalism student at uni. So thanks for the endearing the talk there, the pep talk. Yeah, I know, right?
Well,
it's a tough one.
Somehow I've managed to do this for years, to write about movies and toys and comic books, and just life does find a way.
Exactly.
The secret is to have a partner with a proper job. Endless patience.
There we go. That's always it. It's always the people behind you that kind of keep you going. Yeah. So obviously, kind of, you've mentioned the list of things that you've done in relation to kind of nerd and kind of pop culture. Where did that stem from? Like, where did this love, almost this, I guess you could call it maybe an obsession, with all things kind of nerdy and pop culture? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think all nerds are obsessive by nature. So, growing up, my mother was a nerd. My mother loved movies, loved them, and our household was not a sort of sporty household. So Saturday afternoons growing up in the 70s, I was born in 1969, so growing up in the 70s, we did not watch football. There was no, we were not excited when Wimbledon was on. It was all about, for me and my mum, Saturday afternoon movies, on TV, we used to pull the sofa up to the TV, and she would just tell me everything that she knew about all the different movie stars that we were watching. So I grew up watching, Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and
Singing in the Rain and stuff like that. Yeah.
Humphrey Bogart, kind of all the classics. And then she would take me to the cinema, at least once a week. And so, I grew up watching everything from, Ray Harryhausen movies to Doug McClure, monster movies, Bond, all the great kind of 70s staples, as well as everything else. And yeah, I suppose after a while, I kind of started introducing her to stuff, RoboCop, and I mean things that she wouldn't necessarily have ever watched, and certainly her friends were like, these ladies in their 60s. They were like, well, Myrna, is it what are you doing? And she, well, watching RoboCop 2 tonight, or, whatever. But
That's
she was very open-minded about things, and she had such a passion for everything. She had. She was just so interested in it all, and more than that, it was like it really meant something to her. So she would talk about films like almost like they were kind of friends. I mean, what it's like, it's nerds, we
yeah.
just sort of like
Attach
imprint
yourself to it.
on
You
them. Yeah,
attach
it's
yourself.
just,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just feel like there's just something somewhat stronger connection. And so she passed that along to me. At the same time, my cousin Ronald, or he goes by Ron, he's a producer now. He produced the
Ooh.
Twilight Zone play that was on in London's West End a year or so ago, and will be heading to America. Obviously, everything the pandemic sort of like
Shunted
stuffed it
everything, of
forward.
course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but so he was a few years older than me, and my only first cousin. I used to go around to his house all the time, and he was a collector. So he used to. He would have not just like trading cards from America, which was kind of mind blowing to me at the time, because it's not like you could just buy them
Order off the
from,
internet. Yeah.
you couldn't order the stuff there was no online, it was like, I mean, it was just, it seemed like wizardry to me. But not only would he have the cards, he'd also have the boxes that the cards and the wrappers. He'd have movie posters, all sorts of things that you couldn't easily get, because he would go up to town and scour the collector stores. And I just found everything about him and his interests and just completely magical. And so he was my nerd sensei. So between my mum and my cousin Ronald, I just fell in love with it all. You know, just meant the whole world to me. And then Star Wars came out, and
It's a big one.
mind blown. And I was just hooked. I just knew that some way I would just have to be involved with it. And so I suppose I just became a professional fan.
Exactly, for a living. So you obviously showed me before, but you have your original Star Wars
I
fan
did.
club
I do. I
membership.
have mine
Yeah.
from, it's my 1983. It's with the Return of the Jedi branding. So I used this a couple of years ago. Um, Disney threw this event. Gosh, what was it called? Force Friday or something. A few years ago, um, when they were unveiling tons of new Star Wars stuff. And they did. It was this event at Pinewood Studios, and Disney invited me along, and they said you have to bring ID to get in. So I brought this because I thought, if it's a Star Wars event, this is way more valuable. This means a lot more than just some stupid passport or driving license, which I did have on me, just in
Just in
case
case, on the
anyone
off
wanted to
chance.
turn me away at the door. But we're queuing up, and everybody's handing over their driver's licenses, and I kind of do this. The girl picks it up, she looks at it. She writes my name down. She gives it back. She says, "Thank you." I just go in with that. So I'm not sure you can use this as a passport unless you're going to Endor, possibly.
Yeah,
But
just on
yeah,
the thought, Kashyyyk as well, maybe.
I
You know,
just felt all right. That was my favorite thing about the whole night.
like
Whole
it's.
night.
I say those moments though that you kind of have as being someone in your field. Like, how is like almost this kind of love and this entanglement with pop culture helped you in your kind of journalistic field at the same time? Has it helped? Has it hindered? Has it like opened loads of doors for you by being someone who is
Well,
on this level of kind of fandom?
well, first magazine I worked for was called What's On in London, and it was a crappy magazine. It was sort of like a third-rate Time Out, but it was funded entirely from the adverts in the back of the magazine. Okay, and some of these adverts were in the kind of late 80s, quite questionable. By which I'm saying it was all prostitutes.
All
Okay,
of
I
them,
mean
every single one.
I mean, literally, it was based in King's Cross, which was like whore central, for a very long time. It's sort of it's improved now, but I mean, literally, when I
Historically
started
speaking, yeah.
working there, if you went to a cash point, there would be a woman standing by the cash point, asking you how you planned on spending your money. I mean, I swear I'm not exaggerating. I mean, this happened. It was also it was a very unsavory area, but I completely lost the thread of what I was saying. It was just what's on in London? Yeah, it was mainly funded by the important thing here is that the magazine part of the magazine wasn't important. That as far as the money guys were concerned, it was all funded from the ads in the back.
Right.
So
Okay.
um, I'm not saying that the rest of the magazine was a front, but basically we could do anything we wanted with it. So I was 18. I kind of did my finished my A levels, and I don't know. I didn't really want to go to university. I wanted to I just wanted to start working, and it's weird. I mean, I should have. My mum should have pushed me to go to uni because I mean, I might have, thrived there, but instead, I just wrote to every single magazine in London, a newspaper. I said that theirs was my favorite publication.
Of
I'd
course.
always dreamed of working there, and I got a ton of rejections. But I got the editor of What's On in London. Kind of, he said, "Yeah, come and see me. Let's come for a chat." He said, "I said, how'd you get there?" He said, "Well, you come out of the station, and then there'll be like 12 homeless people, and you just kind of carefully step over them, and then you'll see a bunch of like crack needles." I mean, it was like it was quite a dodgy place. But anyway, I got there,
After this
and
Mordor style
yeah, I
journey,
mean,
it's just
he offered me the job on the spot, which was just because they were just too lazy to advertise it. Literally, they'd fired somebody from the position of classical music editor like the week before. Um, and they just and my letter landed on his desk, and he said, and it was just easier to hire me.
sheer
So
happenstance at that point.
yeah. So basically, when I started, and I realized that there was certain freedom, although they brought me on to be the classical music editor, I was always, which I do love classical music, but I was more interested in being a film critic, and video was. I'm going to say it wasn't new, but it was still a very
Up
thriving
and coming, yeah.
technology. So I saw my in. I said, "Can I start a video section?" And I just created every opportunity to kind of to write about film, and shoehorn my way into becoming the film editor eventually. You had to fill a certain number of pages, and for some reason, What's On in London got tremendous access because it was regarded as sort of non-controversial, whereas some of the newspapers might ask difficult questions. We were more sort of they just didn't regard us as threatening, and it wasn't an oversaturated marketplace. There weren't 3,000
Different types of
blogs and
independent newspaper, yeah.
UFOs
Yeah.
podcasts and
Yeah.
like a
I
million
don't worry,
blogs.
I don't take it personally, don't worry about it.
I mean, there were just fewer outlets. Basically, if you had to actually write for a newspaper or a magazine,
to get into those events and
to
stuff,
get
yeah.
access to this. So through What's On, I managed to interview. This incredibly long way of answering. Gosh, you asked me about kind of my entry into nerd culture, and I'm telling you about being propositioned by prostitutes, and it's like
Look,
just a bit of local
all,
colour
all,
there.
all the best stories involve a proposition by a prostitute, so don't
That's
worry
true.
about it. It's
That's
fine.
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
Most of the
exactly.
best stories do.
Yeah, most of them
So
do.
anyway, that was my first sort of wave of nerdery, things that I got to do when I was working at What's On when I was like 18, 19 years old. I got to interview Ray Harryhausen. I
Oh
got to go
wow,
to his house. I discovered that he lived in London, which was mind blowing to me. He was doing some promotion around the opening of the New Forbidden Planet mega store, which is now closed and been replaced long since. But yeah, I went to his house and interviewed him for that when I was like 19, and it was like I can't believe how incredible this is because I grew up obsessed with Ray Harryhausen. He was the first filmmaker I was ever sort of aware of. And then I interviewed Adam West. I
Wow.
interviewed I honestly, it was just like one. I was meeting original Star Trek cast members. I interviewed
Wow.
Gary Kurtz. I interviewed Christopher Lee.
Wow.
I mean, if you just if you see, there's like a bunch of different kind of autographs there. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
Timothy Dalton, Chuck Norris.
Wow.
Just like one after the other. It was amazing. I was just like a pig in shit, basically. I was just so fucking happy with what I was doing, being paid peanuts, but I was still living at home when I started, and
But you were living the dream,
it was
right?
just
Like,
fantastic.
yeah.
The few of my friends that actually went to university, they're like, "Oh, Marshall, it's so great when you go to uni because you can get a pint for 50p or whatever." And it was like, and I said, "Okay," but last night I went to the British Video Awards and I got pissed with Kevin Peter Hall, and it's like I don't want to show off or anything, but okay, maybe I
So,
do.
so that leads directly into kind of the next question I have for you is what is your kind of favorite interview that you've had, or kind of maybe something that's maybe a kind of special note for you in your
Oh,
whole career?
without a doubt, the Harryhausen one. I mean,
100%.
when I was small, those stop motion movies. Again, nowadays post Jurassic Park, there are. I mean, literally as many prostitutes there used to be in Ghost as there are now genre movies, and you put on Jesus, we're just all so spoiled these days, aren't we? We just got 50 streaming services, and if not that, then you can download it or you can get it off Amazon,
Yeah.
or I mean, we've all got like millions of Blu-rays and DVDs, and it's like there's just so much choice. And I know I sound super old, but when I was a kid, it was like Ray Harryhausen films were everything. They were your one source of realistic, like dinosaur
Effects
or
works and stuff like
mythological
that.
creature action,
Yeah.
and I would just absorbed it. I just would sit. I mean, I really would just sit close up to the TV, and just like I just
Just
couldn't
take
believe
take it all in, almost take
I
it all
did.
in.
I
Like, yeah.
did. And whereas usually certainly as kids, you're supposed to like maybe see the name of the actor or something, and and be drawn towards that,
You saw
or
the name
maybe
of the
the franchise like
yeah.
Bond or something. But Ray Harryhausen's names would be on the poster because you knew that if it was a Ray Harryhausen film, that you were just going to get a shitload of fantastic monsters. And
So
so when I discovered that he was, I was like 19, and I
and you got
just
to interview
started
him,
doing
yeah.
what I was doing, and I get a chance to go and interview him in his house. I was just completely overwhelmed and so excited, and he was so nice and so welcoming, and because I think that he'd sort of retired. That it was post. It was Clash of the Titans was
Yeah.
8 years in his rearview mirror already, and he was, I think, thinking about legacy. And I know a fair few people who met him around that time. He was just very kind and welcoming, very generous with his time, and probably, I mean, it's not awful people coming to your house and treating you like a god. It's
It's
not.
just a
It's
bit
probably not.
it's probably like a bit like almost like surreal for him to maybe, or at that time maybe for him it was like the thing of like people almost bowing down in front of you as being this legendary kind of creature effect kind of stop motion effect
He
artist.
was
Yeah,
incredible. And like all the best nerds, he was a fan himself,
exactly.
because it was his love of King Kong that led him to do everything that he did, and and working with Willis O'Brien, working under him, after Willis O'Brien creates King Kong, Ray Harryhausen ends up doing Mighty Joe Young with Willis O'Brien. Ray Harryhausen goes on and just takes stop motion further than anybody ever dreamed possible. And so there I'm sitting in his house. Not only is it just like amazing to be with him, but it's an absolute Aladdin's cave of posters and production art and all of all of the models. I mean, I swear there was a display case opposite where we were talking that had the Medusa from Clash of the Titans.
Wow. Just an iconic.
And he
Yeah.
just let me look around, and he was like, and I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the original screenplay for Beast from 20,000 Fathoms." And I'd like got my hands on everything, and I took a friend, and we got lots of photos, and it was just, I mean, I've done a lot of great interviews. I met a lot of amazing people, but I mean, something like that so early in my career,
Stays with you.
it was just unbelievable. It was just utterly amazing. Just the access, the thought that I was hanging out with Ray Harryhausen, even when I say it now, it
Still
kind of
makes you
blows
get
my
to.
mind. Yeah.
Here's okay, so this might be a bit of a deep cut when I mention this then. And so whatever happened to the plastic Filmtastic animated podcast, and will we ever see the return of the first ever stop motion interviewer?
Well, someone's done the research. Yeah. Well, that was out of my love of stop motion animation, and I wanted to see what it was like, to actually kind of create something. So using kind of Lego pieces, and I made a little Lego studio, and I did these animated like 1 minute 15 second, as much as I could bear to do, basically, film review podcasts and or vodcasts, but anyway, they were really fun to do, incredibly time consuming, and got me nowhere. I thought I could keep doing this. I have no time to do anything else.
When I first watched it, I always because I scrolled through LinkedIn and found it, and I watched it and I looked at it and I was thinking, this is quite entertaining, but I say they're only a minute long, but it is such a time consuming effort to put behind it. And it was one of those things I was watching. It's like, this is very fun and very interesting, but at the same time, it's like, in comparison to traditional journalism, it's a bit of a step in another direction.
I mean, I suppose I'm not a traditional journalist.
No,
I've
you're
written
not.
books, though. I have written for newspapers. I mean, I used to, I was a film critic and a TV critic, video critic for the Sunday Express. And I've kind of, over the years, probably kind of had bylines in everything. But I don't know. I like to have a go, and I like to play. I'm a toy collector. It's just I'm a collision of different interests. So I like writing is what I do, is what I'm good at, but I'm interested in filmmaking. You get all these fantastic apps that let you do stop motion, reasonably easily if you just kind of pay attention to them. And I don't know, I like to have a go. I did another series of film reviews with Marshall at the Movies, where they're context specific film reviews. So it's like I did a review of one of the Mission Impossible movies. I think it was one of the Mission Impossible movies, and because Tom Cruise is always running in everything, but he never breaks a sweat. I mean, literally me. I'll go make breakfast and I'll break a sweat. It's
I'm
like,
coming up the stairs in my flat and I'm the same.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're kind of huffing and puffing, but it's like he never breaks a sweat, and he just runs. He goes so fast. And so I thought I would do a review on a treadmill and just to see, if I could, even in a minute, how I would look. And I look like a bloody mess. And so I reviewed that on a treadmill, and I did a review of one of the crappy Terminator movies in Harley Davidson.
Wow.
Room. They let me do it. I did science fiction movies in the Science Museum, and it was also incredibly time consuming. You've got to be slightly ballsy, because people are just staring at you when you're doing these things, and you just
But these are,
like, I know I look stupid, but screw it. I'm just gonna do it anyway.
these are
That's pretty much
experiences that
how I
make you
live my
different, though.
life.
Yeah, these
Yeah.
experiences make you different as a kind of journalist, though, and I think it's that kind of difference, or kind of that. I hate to. It's a weird like phrase, but oddball almost thing of doing all these different kind of ideas and kind of incorporating them, whether that be stop motion or, as you said, doing a review on a treadmill or Harley Davidson. that have allowed you to stay ahead of the curve a lot of these years? Because I was looking into it, and obviously you set up one of the first mainstream digital magazines produced by a retailer with Blockbuster UK,
Gosh, where are
and
you getting all your information? This is
uh,
so impressive.
obviously,
Seriously, where are you finding this out about me? I'm
it's,
afraid.
uh, yeah, I'm behind you. Huh? No, but like obviously setting up that kind of one of the first digital magazines for a retailer, like that's like staying massively ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, I suppose. I mean, I did one for for the site called BOL. I kind of first went digital. I was working for a magazine for a website called BOL, which everybody thought was Books Online, but it was Bertelsmann Online. It was a German company that was trying to compete with Amazon.
back in the day when they sold
And
books.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know they selling books and movies. I was the kind of film editor of that section, and you know it didn't last, but you know in the kind of internet boom they had a lot of money to throw around, so it was fun. I mean, you had some fun parties and really screwed around. And then, you know, I was always more interested in the journalistic side than the retail side, so it was like I was really not the right person to kind of lead them in that respect, but I knew what was good, and you know we did our best, and I created a all sorts of kind of websites and things. I remember I did something that was almost like a digital magazine called Fantastic Voyages, I think it was, and it was like this whole sci-fi destination, and that was
Wow.
fun. And then I started working for Blockbuster and started doing all of their digital stuff. Basically, I get hired by a lot of companies and then I run them into the ground. You know,
I was gonna say.
Bertelsmann went into the toilet. HMV, I did HMV after Blockbuster. They pretty much went into the toilet. Blockbuster, I was there till the bitter end. I was there after
Wow.
the long after they were off the boil. So
Wow.
you know, Blockbuster were actually offered the chance to buy Netflix,
Netflix, yeah.
and completely screwed the pooch and
Yeah.
said no, no, we're
Physical
not going to
media will
do
always
that.
be fine.
Like it's like in the world of great mistakes, that is the digital version of turning down the Beatles, really.
Yeah.
Um, which is a shame because you know I could have basically been the film editor of Netflix, which would have been
That's
quite
close.
pleasant. But
That's
anyway,
close.
we did digital magazines and we tried all sorts of things. And I did one for HMV and Extravision, and you know, I just always have a go at something. I'm not afraid of being like left behind. It's like I don't embrace this new technology because out of kind of fear. I'm just interested. I just never kind of felt like I, I'm being left behind. You know, I know a lot of journalists, my generation. I'm 52 now, who would you know never really felt comfortable beyond print journalism. But it's like I'm just interested in it all. You know, I'm not ready to quit. I'll try. You know, I'll try anything. I'll even do a podcast on Discord for God's sake. I mean, literally, there's nothing I won't try.
That is a testament to your character and also your kind of professionalism as a journalist. And obviously not going obviously kind of we spent a lot of time talking about journalism and stuff like that, but kind of moving towards the other facet of your career, which is being an author.
Hmm.
With your kind of two books that you've released, which are all about kind of movies and nerdom and fandom and stuff like that, with the kind of the A to Z guide of action movies, and also obviously the Vintage Geek book. What
Hmm.
made you pursue those two separate projects? Like, what was the kind of almost like internal idea that kind of brought these things to life?
Well, I mean, it was the mid 90s. I was obsessed with action movies.
We love them.
You know, I was in my mid 20s, and that was you know I was mid 20s in the mid 90s. You're supposed to like Arnold Schwarzenegger,
No.
kind of you know Clint Eastwood, and you know I just all of that stuff. I just loved it. I used to hang out with my friends and laugh our asses off and watching everything. You know, I had horror movie friends. I had action movie friends,
Mhm.
and you know we would just watch everything good, everything bad, and it would just you know I just became completely saturated with action and violence, and I needed an outlet for it.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, you know, hooked up with this publisher, and I asked them if he could introduce me, and I went in for a pitch meeting. I had a few different ideas, and I thought it might be fun to do a book of action movie reviews, and there was a quiz element to it as well,
Mm-hmm.
and lists and all the sorts of things. So, and they said yes. So it's like I said, all right. And I went off and wrote it, and it's like you just mentioned it, so I got it off the shelf.
Yeah, there you go.
The action movie A to Z, and I remember going in when they first showed me the cover, because I always said that RoboCop should be on the cover, so they
Yeah.
did that, and then they put this sort of. I don't get me wrong, I like the color pink, but I don't think that it was suitable.
Hot pink with
especially back in
RoboCop.
the day for like an action movie, and it's quite seriously here.
Oh my god.
I said to them, I was thinking that the color should be more like blood red, honestly, more than pink. And he said to me, Marshall, it's not pink, it's fuchsia. And that was the end of the conversation.
In the conversation.
And, I don't know. I do like pink. I don't think it was
The right idea for an action
right.
movie book.
Also, my book came out on the same day as a report on the Hungerford massacre. Which was about the guy saying that he was like Rambo or something.
Yeah.
So there's this whole debate about violence, which is bullshit. I mean, that was just totally made up by the media, because somebody said to him, "Who do you think you are, Rambo?" And it was
said,
suddenly Rambo was responsible for it. That's a whole rabbit hole.
I know, yeah, it's a whole rabbit hole you could do about violence in media, yeah.
Movies, I don't think influence.
The magic bullet effect and stuff like that, isn't it? Yeah, all those kind of journalistic.
But it didn't help. That I'm going off doing press.
For an action hero book.
About, isn't it very violent? And don't you think that these films should have responsibility? Whereas the main tone of my book at the time was tits, murder, blood, and they're like, well, it's like, Marshall, this is. I wasn't like a serious pundit about modern life. I was like, I fucking love action movies, man. They're fucking brilliant. There's a great scene where this guy's head blows up, and she pops out of the car and she's naked. And it was like, but that was why we watched the films back then.
Exactly, it's one of those things. It's what was your favorite?
I apologize.
I was gonna say, for those out there, obviously we'll get censor this down. No, we'll be fine. What's your kind of favorite action movie? Because I have a soft spot for the film Last Action Hero with Arnie, and the main reason why is because I got that when I was way too young to watch it, and I had it on DVD, and I played it until it was scratched. I'd like that film, like a lot of action hero films, even because my dad was big into Schwarzenegger and Stallone and stuff like that. So kind of my childhood was populated as much with Star Wars and Back to the Future as it was with Rocky and Rambo and Predator and Terminator. Absolutely. But yeah, Last Action Hero sticks out for me as being the first ever kind of meta action movie, and really
That's
just
absolutely true. But when I saw it, I was too into action movies to not take it seriously, and I felt like it was sort of an affront to action films. I thought it went beyond being meta to the point where it was just impossibly self-conscious of itself, and I don't know, it just didn't hit me right. I never really liked The Last Action Hero. You have every right. I'm not going to cancel you. You have every right to like it. But for me, the all-time greatest action movie, the all-time greatest film of the 1980s is RoboCop.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's so fucking hard.
Yeah,
it is grim, and it's savagely, it's funny. It's just it is like all things to all men, I think. But then Arnold, if you're talking about Arnold, who I adore, and I think he was an excellent politician as well.
Yeah, of course, yes, as a governor.
Although I don't think he's done anything good since he came out of retirement. It's just But if you look at his early work, I would say Commando.
And
Terminator 2. The Running Man.
Oh man, what a film!
Conan the Barbarian. Conan, what is best in life? It's like
Yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, man. Also, Clint Eastwood, the Dirty Harry films,
Fistful of Dollars, all that
Enforcer.
stuff. Yeah,
Those stuff. I mean, war movies, Where Eagles Dare, and The Dirty Dozen,
yeah.
and all of that stuff. Just I got to meet a lot of action stars as I in those days in my kind of my What's On in London days. I met Chuck Norris, who gave me a very disappointing autograph. He just put "nice meeting you," and I just looked at him and I thought, "Is that seriously the best you can do?" It's like, for fuck's sake, you're not like Marshall. I'm going to tear your head off, shit down your neck. I'm going to put you on fire. I'm going to throw you in your family house and kill everyone you know. It's like, that's what I was sort of wanting. And I thought, "Nice meeting you." It's like, okay. I met. I did lots of phoners, of people who probably didn't want to risk meeting me.
Yeah.
I met Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't remember anything from that. I was so excited. All I could hear was the blood rushing through my ears. I gave him a copy of my book, and he shook my hand. And I was just thinking, God, this guy's got an enormous hand. and I don't have no idea what I said. Probably something incredibly stupid. But, it's like, it was Steven Seagal. Okay, I interviewed him for Nico. I think it was like his first film, and up till then he'd just been like a trainer, like a martial arts trainer or something. And there were all these rumors swirling around that he was that he'd been in some sort of special forces thing, which was just a load of horse shit. It was just bullshit. And so I said to him, the villain played by Henry Silva in the movie, is he based on anyone that may be in your special ops history that you encountered? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, he is based on someone from those days, but he said he doesn't exist anymore. And it was like, oh, did you kill him? Did you kill him?
Did you kill him?
How did you kill him? Now there was a guy who's like, he was just so sadistic. It's like, what defines Steven Seagal, apart from a complete zero charisma, was that he would kill somebody, or he would maim someone, then he would go back and he would break their leg or something. Like, there was just a lot of compound fractures in Steven Seagal.
Very Batman-esque.
Arnold would throw you off a cliff, you'd be dead. That would be it. Steven Seagal would go back to make sure he would
suffer.
Something else. He would really make suffer.
That's an interesting thing though of obviously kind of these like action heroes and these big action influences and these kind of obviously big hulking men, and not to get too far off thing. I love talking about all things nerd culture and everything kind of nerdy and stuff like that, but with the BGCP Disable podcast being a primarily comic book centric podcast, what are some of your favourite kind of big hulking comic book characters or kind of runs through the years, if you do read comics or if you're kind of just a fan of films and stuff?
Well, Batman.
Of course, yeah, nice. Long Halloween.
Also, Howard the Duck.
Oh, what a terrible film.
Terrible film, absolutely fantastic comic book.
Yeah.
And actually, I interviewed Stan Lee years ago, and I said to him, Stan, I probably said Mr. Lee. I probably like Mr. Lee. So I sound all like hard now. I said Stan.
Stan.
I said to him, I think if you ever do make another Howard the Duck film, what you should do is, because Howard the Duck, the comic book, was a parody of comic books, so surely the movie should have been a parody of movies.
Comic book movies, yeah.
That's how it should be. And he agreed with me, and I got him to sign like 50 million things, and his business card which had Spider-Man on it, which was awesome. I've got it framed, and so that's my Howard the Duck. I love Batman. I was into Batman. Well, when I was small, I only read horror comics. I liked DC horror comics, but I liked all the kind of any sort of anything gross or bloody, or kind of loved all the DC Marvel horror comics, all the Charlton horror comics, and so I was well into that. I didn't actually get into superheroes till I was like 18, 19, when most people are sort of giving up comic books.
You were getting right into it.
Like doubled down and really got into it. And then, I was really getting into Batman, and then the Tim Burton movie came out. The Tim Burton movie came out, and I actually really
1989.
didn't like it because I thought that is not Batman. There's so much bullshit in that film. It's like like the scene when Vicky Vale turns up, she's worried about Bruce. She turns up at Wayne Manor, and Alfred takes her down to the fucking Batcave. He's like, that was a fantastic secret base I had there for 5 seconds, Alfred. It's like, just why not bring everyone down? Why not put a big neon sign saying, "Oh, look, Batman lives here"? So it's like I found that, and also I thought that, especially in the second one, he definitely kills people, and it's like, have you even read a Batman comic in your whole life? Yeah. So anyway,
A lot of distaste for those films. I could see.
I was just but you know what really bothered me, and it was and that is very modern to feel like like gatekeeping, but I felt annoyed when I would see sort of these yuppie assholes reading like The Dark Knight Returns on the fucking tube, the same sort of people who a few years earlier would have tried to just kick the shit out of me at school, or scream nerd if I was as I emerged from a Comic-Con or something. I thought, oh, now it's fashionable.
Yeah, comic books are cool now. Yeah.
In the end, the nerds won. In
There
the
you
Great
go.
War, we killed all the jocks. We killed all those people who made a living, using their muscles and stuff, and all those pale ones who basically sit in front of computers and reading comics and stuff. We inherited the earth.
Yeah, the geeks will inherit the earth. That's how it is.
So that's how I remember it. I just knew that eventually all of my enemies would turn to dust, and that only the geeks would survive.
What an interesting sentiment. What a astoundingly kind of it's very yeah, Batman, yeah.
Also Lobo, and I love Lobo. I just like stupid.
I'm the thing is I am a Superman fan myself, and I know people will say Superman's boring to the end of the earth, but for me personally, there's nothing better than the Big Blue Boy Scout. Like obviously you saying you have your distaste for the Burton films. I have a very special place in my heart for the Donner Superman films.
Oh yeah,
like being
Superman the movie is still the best superhero film ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever.
It's I really love it. It's just great. Yeah, it stands the test of time.
Oh,
and
I went to see it. Yeah. I mean, you're not old enough to have gone.
Definitely
to
not.
Cinema, presumably, I was like 9 years old, and my mum took me to see it, and that whole thing about "you'll believe a man can fly."
Why? Yeah.
It's not a catchphrase that really means anything today, because pretty much anything can be rendered realistically on screen. But it was absolutely revelatory. It was the first time you saw a guy flying where it didn't look like he was just lying on a table with his cape covering the sides, with a backdrop. I mean, it just, on top of which it's completely mythic, it's epic, it's beautifully told. It's actually the first comic book film where the source material was respected, and I mean, it had that weight of like great American biopic.
I think it doesn't take itself
seriously as any other.
I think it didn't take itself too seriously was the thing as well. Like, it took itself just seriously enough to be this heroic kind of superhero film, but at the same time allowed for that little bit of like suspension of disbelief, especially obviously with
fun
like
with it. No, absolutely, it had fun with it, but it didn't like, it wasn't embarrassed. There were post Superman, there were there were 10 years of superhero films made by people who weren't really comic book fans, who were a little bit embarrassed of the subject matter, and like films like the Shadow with Alec Baldwin, and they were always a bit winky, they were always a bit sort of like apologetic. They were like, oh well, we know that this is silly, and they just didn't own it. They were just a little bit reticent, and
it almost loses itself, almost like it loses what the original thing was. And I guess that goes back to the Batman thing of it being too campy for its own good in some ways, where it takes this very serious character and turns him into a man who can't move his whole body without his neck like that
Absolutely.
for
I
90
mean,
minutes.
the thing was that growing up, that our movie Batman, our TV Batman was Adam West, and I mean, somehow, as jokey as that was, that seemed, I mean, to a child me, like more authentic
It knew what it
somehow
was though, right?
than the Tim
Yeah,
Burton. What
films.
do you think?
I think so. I think that the 66 Batman knew what it was. Like
Mm.
it wasn't trying to masquerade as something else, if that makes sense. Like it knew exactly what it was and knew exactly what it was going into. And like I remember watching those things on ITV2 when that like after school and stuff like that, those kind
Mm.
of those ones, and those kind of like Batman and Batman and Robin, well, the classic villains and stuff like that. Like it knew it was campy, it knew it was fun, but at the same time, because it knew it was that, it was able to lean into that enough instead of where Burton and kind of some other interpretations of Batman don't understand the difference between Batman as a dark character and also how to treat him in a setting that isn't also dark, if that makes sense. Like,
And I think that the things that the a few things that other things that the Burton movie got wrong is that the emphasis was always on the villains,
yeah,
and I thought that was a load of bullshit because if you can't if you can't make Batman an interesting character, if you don't think that Batman is an interesting character, that you have to actually focus more on the villains, because somehow a guy who's as driven as he is and as tortured as he is, and that wears costumes and has all these amazing tools at his disposal and is a genius and is a martial arts expert, if he's not interesting to be the main focus of his own film, then it's like, I think you just don't get Batman.
you've lost the
And
plot.
I mean, but the original Batman, 66 Batman, was always pitched as completely straight for kids and a fantastic parody for adults, and that's actually, you know, incredibly sophisticated, and it's so hard to pull off something that works on those two levels. That seriously, when I started watching Batman, I did not think that it was jokey or campy, and I watched it completely seriously. When you first watch it when you're a kid, and then when you watch it a few years later, you realize that actually it's completely hilarious.
Yeah, it's
And it's
parody,
like,
yeah,
what?
at its
There's
best.
nothing else that has succeeded on that level. I mean, Batman 66 was just genius. I watch it with my youngest Phoebe, and we just love it. I mean, it's still really funny, and it looks fantastic. I was just the production design. I mean, that Batmobile is
Yeah,
beautiful. I would
iconic.
just watch
Yeah.
an hour of him just driving around.
So
Honestly,
obviously, we're talking about Batman, we're talking about Superman, we're talking about all these action hero related things. One thing I found out when I was researching was that you're a brand ambassador for Zava UK,
I
which is
am.
obviously
I am.
a kind of nerdy comic book pop culture website that has a bunch of like exclusive kind of things on them. How did that come about, and how does that kind of, on the grand scheme of things, connect to the rest of your career as being a journalist and film critic?
Well, as a journalist, you don't always get to write about the things that you're interested in. You have to write about all sorts of shit. And as journalism doesn't always pay the bills, and you have to turn to, you have to do some marketing. You have to, you basically just whore yourself out to anybody who'll throw a few quid your way. You end up doing all sorts of things. I mean, I was working for this company that owned Blockbuster and owned HMV, and sometimes they would ask me to, say, write a load of copy for some other acquisition of theirs, like some watch company or some knockoff watch thing, and they needed descriptions of like 500 watches, and you'd spend a month using words like bezel, and it was just so much bullshit. But and then for a year or so, I even wrote a few. Did some blogs for this wedding invitation site. Things that it's like, basically it's like, Marshall, if you want to do the fun stuff, we need you to do this stuff as well. And it sucks. I mean, you want to basically just do the things that you're interested in, but the truth is that if you're going to make a living doing this, sometimes you just have to, take the
Bite
rough
the
with the
bullet. Yeah.
smooth. Yeah, you just have to do it. But doing it is not terribly satisfying, and so when as I entered a period where I had to do a lot of that sort of stuff, I kind of turned more to social media as an outlet for my kind of nerdiness. So I used to do the social media for this animation art company called Art You Grew Up With, and I discovered that I sort of had a knack for it. That without going to university to train in social media, that actually I just kind of I could write I could write a good headline, and that's basically posts are basically extended headlines. I'm good with a pun. Now they call them dad jokes, but we just used to call them like headlines. um, I found that all the things that I'd learned in, as a journalist, kind of actually helped me succeed in social media. And so the more unhappy I was or unsatisfied with what I was doing as a journalist, the more kind of passion I would pour into my own social, especially Twitter. Twitter really works the best for me because it's succinct. You can get in, get out. You can make a point. You can make a joke, or you could have a funny picture. But it's a perfect marriage of image and text, and it just really worked for me. And I found that it was a format that I liked. Also, I mean, it's quite you're quite cut off often, as a journalist. Most of the time you can actually just spend on your computer. You don't
Hmm.
actually necessarily have to go anywhere or meet people. I mean, I would go out to screenings and have adventures and stuff, but mostly it's pretty solitary. And I found the internet and Twitter and social media is a great way of like reaching out to people like yourself and creating this great sort of nerd community.
It's a network, isn't it?
And yeah, but I met so many people like me, and so many people who were into the same things as me, and yeah, so my Twitter sort of took off, and I started getting 10,000, 20,000, 30,000
Wow.
followers. And it wasn't like it was an accident. I mean, when I saw that and I realized that I kind of had a knack for it and I enjoyed it and I was building this community, I kind of really kind of leaned into it, and I got all these followers, and I love my Twitter. I love my Twitter page. I'm very friendly with a lot of the people who follow me, and a lot of the people every day. Kind of the same likes, the same retweets, people
Interaction, yeah.
making comments, and everybody feels, like it's sort of like a safe place. We're not sort of into politics. Don't really get political. Don't, there's no sort of trolling. It's kind of like we just, kind of have some fun. And the post birthday of the day, I found all these video clips. I just try and kind of have some fun, and people respond to it. So and after a while, people say, "Well, you're an influencer." It's like, okay, am I an influencer? Because I'm not 17-year-old girl. I'm not
Vlog in your
like
bedroom.
standing with my back to the camera. I'm holding a coffee in one hand and a motivational pillow in another, with a fucking waterfall in front of me, and with like some kind of just a lazy day, just kind
Live
of like that.
life, love it, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
you got all that bullshit. And I fucking hated that. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna be like this toothless, grown nerd influencer. I'm gonna be like this 50-year-old kind of like I fucking love Lego sort of influencer. I'm gonna share stuff about the things I do, the people that I've met, and talk about stories. Because after a while, if you don't die, you become a sort of elder statesman for nerdery. And it's like that's basically all you have to do. You just basically have to not die. So
So you
whereas
basically.
nobody's interested in you in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, but you hit 50s and it's like ding, ding, ding. There's a new generation of people who go, wow, I can't believe it. You met this person, you met that person, and
You're
you
part
bought
of the Grand
all these
Council of
original,
Nerdery.
toys and
Yeah.
action figures, and it's like, yeah, that's because I was born before you, and I spent all my money on shit, and that I love, that I still own, and I'm not dead yet. It's like this is like all the perfect qualifications. And so this is why occasionally I do some influencer social with because not everybody is a 19-year-old, girl who wants to go off to Bermuda and drink, the perfect latte or whatever. It's like I just really have no idea.
You've got no clue. You just
Influencers, but basically, Zavi is, they're so nice to me. They send me so much stuff, and we just it's a very good deal. They basically send me almost everything I ask for, and I just post about it. They don't say like, "Oh, we want you to promote this, Marshall." They like, honestly. I mean, I kind of, I'm allowed to spend a certain amount on their site every month, and I just share it. And it's like I cannot believe that I'm in that situation. I mean, it's insane. I cannot believe that as a toy collector, I now have relationships with people like Lego and Funko and stuff, and they send me stuff because
wow.
I'll put it on my social, and
You
it's
tweet
not
about
like
it, yeah?
yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm sharing like uh, hypnotherapy or aromatherapy,
It,
pillows and or candles and stuff. I mean, it's all stuff that I would get anyway if I could afford to get this much. So it's like I feel like if people thought that I was plugging stuff that I wouldn't want anyway, then they would just smell bullshit. But it's like
exactly, yeah.
if I get a new Star Wars Lego, if I get a Star Wars Lego set, then it's like I'm gonna, whether I bought it myself or whether I was given it, I'm gonna want to post about it.
Exactly. You want to show the world that you've got it, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
always the
So
thing.
it's like I don't feel like I'm. You can't sell out if you never really had any principles. Also. It's like it's not like I woke up one morning I was Gandhi and the next I'm Hitler. It's like I'm somewhere in between Gandhi and Hitler, honestly.
As most people are.
Yeah,
Um,
just put that on a t-shirt.
yeah,
Somewhere between
between
Gandhi
Gandhi.
and Hitler.
Speaking of t-shirts, you obviously have a merch store that you have t-shirts with kind of nerdy designs, and you have like a passion
Yeah.
project of yours on the side. Is that something that's come about through lockdown, or has that been kind of brewing for a little while? And where can people find these
Well,
amazing shirts
I
that I've
don't
seen?
think I'm this. I don't think I'm. I don't. I definitely would stop short of calling myself an artist. It's like as I said to somebody the other day. A lot of people are like, so right. So here's my Optimus, right?
Yeah,
And if you kind of look closer, you see it sort of cross-hatched because I kind of like that style. But a lot of people might say, "Oh, Marshall, his style is delightfully sort of retro, or it has a frisson of childish glee, or there's just something about it. He certainly captures." It's like, no, this is just literally the best that I can do. This isn't me like, "Oh, I'm going to try this style." This is like me looking really hard at a picture of Optimus Prime and doing my very best to
to
draw it
replicate
as
it. Yep.
accurately as I can. Yeah, so everything that I do and then just obsessively color it in very careful straight lines and not going out the lines. I mean, this was something that I did during lockdown, especially. I always like drawing and drawing with my kids, but I found that when the lockdown started, especially, um, I didn't really have a head to. I sort of went off playing video games.
Oh, as we all do.
Pardon.
As we all did. I mean, I'm currently wearing a Street Fighter top at the moment, but yeah, no, it's just yeah, as we all did.
I
We
don't
all
know. Especially video games that were like I had the Spider-Man game,
oh,
and there were
fantastic.
like 300 button combinations to just get him to just walk, and it's like, for fuck's sake, this is so complicated. It's taking me out of the game. I'm just not enjoying it, and I started playing it like 2-3 times, and it was like every time it's like, oh, this is such hard work, and it felt like, oh, this has got to be a break from work, not actual work. So I actually sort of got I actually sort of went off games. I still now I'll only
Wow.
play Far Cry and Zelda games. That's it now, and Mario Kart and probably like 12 other things. But on the whole, I'm kind of like I just kind of checked out of a lot of things, and so I kind of turned to more sort of therapeutic things. I don't want to sound all sort of airy and artsy, but I got some nice paper, I got some nice pens, and I used to hang out with my youngest Phoebe, especially, and we used to just draw. She's very good at drawing. She can probably draw. I just used to draw robots. Then a friend of mine who runs this merch site, Hot Merch, Russell, he said, you know, would you like to, come up with some t-shirt ideas for me? Maybe some good slogans or some buzzwords or whatever. And I said, no, but why don't you put some of my robots on t-shirts instead?
There you go.
Because now I'm a t-shirt designer, and he was like, okay. And so suddenly I've got 20 different designs on Hot Merch, and I kind of got an Etsy store where you can get all these things as stickers and magnets, and I sell the art. People actually buy my original drawings, and it was like the first one that sold. I said to my wife, Ruth, I said, well, I'm an artist now. And I swear she rolls her eyes at me like 300 times a day, but even that was like the epic eye roll of all
Of
the
course.
but
There we go. I mean, it's part of the passion, part of the art.
it's just I always like having a project. It was
Yeah.
like I can do nothing for a long time. I do like to have something on the go. Like I've got to be drawing something or making something, or I've got to have half the dinner table covered in Lego for a set that I'm building, or there's just always got to be something that I'm making or drawing or writing, or it's just this it's just this constant need to do something. And I suppose it all grows out of just being a nerd. It
There
all
you
just
go.
comes from having sat with my mum and watched movies growing up, and going to my cousin's house and being so fucking jealous of all the stuff that
Everything
he
that they
had,
have, yeah.
that I just had to go mad and do my own until it became almost grotesque. I mean, literally, look, I've literally got it. It's all over the ceiling as well.
Well,
It's like Geordie Verrill. It's in Creep Show. It's like there's moss in the form of toys that
toys,
start
yeah.
growing everywhere. You touch it and it just
Encases you, yeah.
does. I'm completely encased.
With that being said, obviously, I think we're coming to the end of our time with you, Marshall, and it's been fantastic talking to you. But I just want to ask you a few more kind of questions to kind of cap off the interview. And kind of one of the things that I feel like I want to ask personally, because being a journalism student myself, is what would you say to anyone who's interested into kind of getting into the kind of writing articles or kind of digital news scene at the moment? Like, what's something, maybe words of wisdom you can maybe pass on to the future generation?
Well, it's not a business to get into if getting if you want to make a lot of money. I mean, that's just the truth. It's like you just it's so hard to make a living doing this job that it has to be your absolute passion.
Mm-hmm.
The work almost has to be its own reward. That said, don't let people take advantage of you. Don't believe when people say, "Oh, do it because it's good for." It's going to raise your profile and stuff. That's just complete bullshit. You say, no, getting paid is good for my profile, asshole. Pay me something. It's just something that if you have to do it, then do it.
Mm-hmm. So it's like calling.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like being a nurse. Only instead of wanting to help people, I just want a house full of toys. But apart from the fact that it's a completely selfish thing, it's like being a nurse. Apart from the fact that I'm not like endangering myself to save other people or working long hours. So actually, it's nothing like that, but it is a calling. It's like I'm just too much of an idiot to do anything else. And literally, I am not qualified to deliver. I mean, maybe I could get a job delivering flyers. I mean, it's like I can either be a professional writer or I could be, whatever, like I could put pizza menus through the door. No disrespect to people who do that for a living. It's a fine calling because who doesn't need a pizza menu at 2
Exactly.
a.m. sometimes?
Exactly. We always need it.
I think it's look, look, some people get lucky, and there are always ways that you can find to try and monetize it. You just have to keep adapting, and it's like so you do a bit of writing here, you do some podcasting, you do a bit of social media. It's like you just make as many friends as you can, network your ass off. I
There
used
we
to
go.
think that if you were just good, that was all you needed to be, but that is just not true, because there's actually a lot of people who actually suck as writers, who are really good at networking, that
So they get
had
to the
much better careers than me, because they kissed the right asses and they made the right friends. Whereas me, I would be at home like an idiot writing, thinking, "Oh, this is really good," but you just it's just this whole combination of things. So I would say, make friends, chase every opportunity, but above all else, just do it because you love it. Do it because you just, more than the money, you just want to see the next film. You can't wait to, you love being in that situation where you can meet that person. Well, you love talking about movies, and how great to be able to meet the person who made the movie.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just do it because you can't do anything else. Because if you can do something else, you should totally do something else.
Well, with that being said, obviously, so that's all we have time for on the BGCP Disassemble podcast. Thank you for joining us, Marshall. You
My
can.
pleasure.
It
I'm
was
sure I
great
just
having you on.
talk complete nonsense. Go
Oh
on.
no, it was great to have you on. Do you have anything else to plug before obviously we kind of let you go and stuff at the moment?
Okay.
Any other projects, anything like that?
T-shirts on Hot Match. Stickers and magnets on Etsy. Vintage Geek Art. Vintage Geek, the Quigs book. You still get that on Amazon. What else? Well,
Come
I'm
on,
writing in
more.
at the moment, but you can't buy that yet. But just follow me. That's it. Probably just follow me on Twitter at Marshall Julius, and also I do this fun Facebook page called Vintage Geek Central. So connect with me there. I'm very available if you fancy a chat, or if you just want to abuse me, if you want to call me full of shit. Fantastic, but follow me first, and then do those things. And believe me, I will pitch whenever I have something to sell. You will know it.
There we go. So, you can obviously find Marshall's books, including Action, the action movie A to Z, and Vintage Geek, the quiz book, over 1,000 intriguing questions and fascinating answers for nerds of all ages, on Amazon and at all good book retailers. You can find us on Facebook at BGCP Comic Con and BGCP Disassemble Podcast. We're also on Twitter as at BGCP Comic Con. You can also find the latest news, reviews, interviews, and time update as lockdown eases in Glasgow and also Scotland at the Big Glasgow Comic Page website. So, everybody, I hope you have a great evening. Goodbye, and see you on the next page.
Thank you for listening to Disassembled. You can find more news and reviews on bigglasgowcomicpage.com. And don't forget, you can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as BGCP Comic Con. Make sure you also subscribe on your podcast provider of choice for new episodes every week.